we were learning the Halachot of Muktze, we said that there are two types of categorical things that the Chachamim did not impose a restriction of Muktze. The first category we said is Sfarim, all the various books. The second category we said is Ochalim, foods. Foods are not in the category of Muktze, meaning to say I'm allowed to move it from one place to another place, even if there is no purpose. Shelo letzorech kilal, even if there's no reason to move it. That's true when you're talking about edible foods. When you're talking about inedible foods, the halacha changes. Inedible foods, even though they could eventually become edible, are muktze on Shabbat. So perfect example of this would be flour. If you have flour that you make bread out of, flour as it is not edible. You don't eat flour. Once you mix it with water, you make it into dough, you turn it into bread, of course it becomes edible. But as it stands, it's not edible. Therefore, flour is muktze on Shabbat. It's not able to be handled because it serves no purpose. That is, its intended purpose is not able to be used on Shabbat. So that has the status of muktze. Shulchan Aruch talks about meat. It says, is meat that is raw, muktze. And interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch says raw meat is not muktze, and there is no distinction between raw chicken or raw red meat or any of the meats. Is not muktze. And he says, why is it not muktze? Because there are certain people that are able to eat raw meat. They eat a little bit. You don't eat the whole thing at once. You take a little bit over here, a little bit. They serve it in very fancy restaurants. They serve raw meat. You salt it properly. You put a little bit of salt. You put a little bit of pepper, and you're able to eat it. So since there are some people that eat it, even though the majority of people might not eat it, but still it has the category of food, and it is able to be handled. What's interesting is in Chazon Ovadia, he uses the language of b'makom ifsid. If it's a case where it's going to get lost, meaning it's outside and it's going to defrost and get spoiled, so then you'd be able to put it back into the freezer, etc. One of those cases. However, if you look at Chacham Yitzhak, he says what my father wrote in Chazon Ovadia b'makom ifsid, he didn't mean it particularly in that case. Because if you look at Yabia Omer, he never said b'makom ifsid, when there's loss. He meant to say that's a typical case where you'd be moving it. But in truth, even if there is no financial loss, even if it's not a case of a great necessity, he just wants to move it from the freezer, from one part to another part of the freezer, it would be mutar. Raw meat is not defined as muktze. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.